Hey everybody, this is Eddy Dacius. We are on our 15th episode. This is great and I like it. We've been blessed with a lot of great guests, a lot of content, a lot of information. Hot topics is the it's what we're looking for, asking questions and go deeper on those conversations. So this episode is brought to you by Dacius Facilities Management. Dacius Facility Management, they will manage your property with a variety of services such as cleaning, vendor management, facility management, construction. Call them now, 617-237-0106. And we have every Wednesday, we have a new episode on DP Podcast Live on YouTube, DP Podcast on Podbean, Apple Podcast, and on our website, www.dppodcast.com. And we have a great guest. Our guest is Cory McCarthy. Cory McCarthy will be our guest. Let's introduce him.
Welcome to the Divine Purpose Podcast, where we transport you along one of the more dynamic journeys of life. Have you ever been curious to know what it takes to become a successful leader? Or about knowing the secrets of life through the Bible? How about engaging in conversation where no topics are off limits? We will take you to new levels with guests who can help you grasp the importance of your calling. Now, here's your host, Eddy Dacius, founder of Dacius Facilities Management.
McCarthy will be our guest, and let's check it out.
Good. You for me. This is an incredible honor to be a guest and really to have some real honest talk about education and some of those other important topics right now in our community.
No, definitely, this will be a great conversation. Like education is the key. Education is power. So let's go deeper on who is Cory McCarthy. We like to go.
Wow.
Yeah, let's go.
Well,
man.
Right. I'm just, I'm West Indian. Obviously, I was born in the island of Barbados. I came here to this country, this great country, when I was 7. I was able to be mentored by some folks who gave me an opportunity to really be who I am. A father of one. My son's getting ready to go to college. I am currently the chief equity officer at Everett Public Schools. I was there as a vice principal for a year last year during when COVID was high and heavy. I then was promoted to chief equity officer. Previously, before Everett, I was at New Mission High School, the highest performing which is now the highest performing exam school in the city of Boston. I'm very proud of that because of where we were when I first started there in 2003. A lot of people, they really want to close our school, and we fought to keep it open. And then we started performing. And it's really because of the deep commitment that an authentic commitment to all the buzzwords that people use now: whole child, supportive learning, really having high achievement and outcomes. All those buzz terms, we were those buzz terms because we were really grinding to get every kid an opportunity to get what they want, and then present them with a path to be successful. So, obviously born in Barbados, the island of Barbados. I came here when I was 7, and I really met some folks who really believed in me. I could have really took a turn to the streets, but some folks really believed in me. They did everything I'm trying to do for kids now. They advocated for me. They fought for me.
Wow.
They educated me. They put me on to literacy. They helped me understand what justice was. They helped me understand what policy is, and how that affects people who look like me. And for me, man, you talked about education being key. For me, education is 2 things. It's justice and it's liberation. And, and where as an educator, I'm doing the justice work. I'm making sure that that kids are learning from their experience and not just from a book. I'm making sure that that kids can formulate and own their thoughts and own their learning rather than being told that this test is going to define who they are. So that's really been my mission. as an educator. A lot of folks will tell you that it's very unorthodox because my approach is it's all the things that people stereotype black men for. Just
Yeah.
really being strong in my approach and being and helping kids assume their power and their voice. And by me doing that, I'm able to generate a confidence within students that help them be that becomes contagious, and they want more for themselves. They want to own their learning. They want to speak up. They want to have powerful voices. They want to change their trajectory. They want to stay out of the school to prison pipeline. And by doing that, I think that's the work. And for me, it's not a job. So I'm happy by doing that.
Well said. And one thing we like to do, it's to try to go deeper and dive into your history, your background. So you came here at when you were 7. So what was the transition for you from your country and then coming here?
Well, I mean, in my country, in Barbados, we had to wear uniform all the time.
Yeah.
And in Barbados, you're West Indian, in Barbados, they'll have you go outside and play for an hour. And if you came back in 90-degree weather, you came back and you were sweating through your shirt, you get a beating. So I mean, there's no. I came up here and I see kids being disrespectful to adults and being oppositional, and I'm like, oh my God, this might be a little easy, So
you're right.
All right, but then I saw the pain, and I saw then I recognized the pain and I saw the struggles in the community. And as a young man, I really knew I wanted to make a difference. So that transition really built a lot of empathy for me towards my peers, and I wanted to do more for myself. And I was shameless about it. I got my first job. I was a custodian, the junior custodian of a school I went to school in. So I have no shame. And as a ninth grade freshman, I had one pair of pants. My mom gave me $5 a week, and I'll buy dye with it, and I'll dye my pants every other day. So for me, the thing is that I had no shame because I knew what the goal was. I knew I needed to liberate myself. I knew I needed to own my learning. I knew I needed to excel and escape all the things that could really hinder me and lead me to death or being in jail.
Yeah, definitely. But and what you said is so powerful. But let's go to the learning process, because at the end of the day, you have to learn that, okay, this is your situation. So how did you grow in that situation, and you accepted it, right? So what was your mind process, or your thinking? How did you go through? And I know you mentioned you had mentor, you had people guiding you. So can you talk more about this?
Well, I think the biggest learning tool for me was the death of my father. My dad died when I was 11. Yeah, he died when I was 11, like suddenly. And quite honestly, man, I became, I was into the streets a little bit. Between ages of 11 and 13, sticking people up at the train station, hanging around with the wrong crowd. Sports and sports changed my life. Number one, my interest in sports, and number two, one night I came home after just being out really, really late, and my mom, who had to take on 2 jobs after my dad died, she just was in the couch waiting for me, but she fell asleep because she had to work 2 jobs. But she's waiting for me. She's waiting for her 12-year-old son to come home, and she really, my mom at the time, she was probably 37. My mom looked like she was 90 because because it was just all those worries. In my mind, I was after that I was like, I'm just gonna be the last person she ever has to worry about. She ain't gonna have to worry about a bill. She ain't gonna have to worry about a job. She ain't gonna have to worry about nothing. When it comes to her son, Cory McCarthy, my mother would have to worry about nothing. It paid off because it really was the driving force behind me and my learning process, and me trying to pick up a book, me trying to absorb and understand history and the influence of history, and how it could affect me, and how so many other kids went the other way when their parent wasn't there. And that's what I worry about with my current students is like, what are you going to do when that adversity hits you? Are you going to learn from it? Are you going to move on? Are you going to build? Are you going to live? Are you going to build upon that experience and flip it into a situation where you could be successful, because we have a sharing problem in our community. We don't like, like for years before, when we were slaves, we would share everything. We were responsible for sharing everything.
Yes.
When I got knowledge, I in the 1800s, I wanted to give it to somebody. I needed to give it. It was my responsibility. And now, it became a little different. So for me, I just became a throwback, and I was like, I'm going to give my knowledge to anybody I got. I wasn't preaching to them, but that really elevated me and made me really want to become someone that can influence the community and students.
So now my question, what was your introduction to your history? When was it, and what was the change? Because I know everybody, when they learn about their history, they really have a wake-up call. How was that for you?
Man, I'm glad you asked that, because a lot of people don't really understand. I'm from Barbados, man, and in Barbados, when the government doesn't do something right by the people, the Calypsonians, the singers, and our national music is calypso, they sing about it openly, and they're openly critical. They have the freedom to be critical of the government. If they don't like a policy, they have the freedom to sing about it and criticize the policy. When they are unhappy with the roads and the potholes being in the roads, or they're unhappy with people trying to privatize our beaches, these people were protesting. I'm at 6, 7, 5 years old, hearing from from celebrities and singers that we need to be treated equitably. We need to be treated fairly. This policy doesn't, I never forget a phrase that I heard when I was younger. A song is called "The Price for Progress is Too High," and I spent so many years trying to figure out why that was such an important song. And as I got older, and it influenced my learning, because I was able to create some discourse in my mind as to how society should function. And so at a young age, learning from Calypsonians and people who were in Barbados who refused to be oppressed, I got here and I was like, wow, this is an even deeper oppressed, even deeper. And I'm not knocking anyone. It's just a deeper oppressive state that they're in this country, that our people who look like us are in. So by witnessing that and getting the influence of, and then always, because every summer I would go home and I would get that, I would listen to calypso. I would watch the national competition. So every year I'm coming back with something, right? Another song in Barbados, "No More Lies," stop lying to the people. Another one's like, "I can't party." We shouldn't be partying in our country when people are suffering. And having that sort of agency and having that freedom, I was just different when it came to being expressive and fighting for people. And a lot of people, started calling me a bull, whatever. But no, I would just fight for people. I just want to fight.
Yeah.
Even now, criticize as being that. But I just don't know any other way, because all my life, I've had people tell me and help me understand and rationalize why advocacy is important, why agency is important.
Yes.
No,
you definitely make a valid point, and I appreciate you sharing this. But so what did you remember? I know you grew up in Barbados at 7 and you moved here. So do you remember anything in your childhood from Barbados?
Oh, definitely, man. And Barbados is not perfect, but I tell you one thing: if I'm a man in Barbados, what I always remember, all the things that people make fun of people for up here, kids for up here, are things that we don't even think of in Barbados. If you're in Barbados, if you're a person who is considered homeless, you could pick 10 houses in a row, and you could ask for a plate of food every day from a different one, and you're gonna get a meal.
Wow.
So you're gonna get a meal. Somebody's gonna give you a meal out of those 10 houses, right? But that whole mindset, and it's not a person begging. It's just that, hey, if I got, you got, right? If I have, that's why I don't have problems spending my personal money on children at all. I don't have problems funding things at all. I'm not rich, but I will give, if I have extra, if I have a little more, I'm gonna make sure that someone has a little more. So what I do remember is that people weren't hungry. They celebrated each other, regardless of how much money someone made. I know a guy. I had a guy, one of my father's friends. He managed one of the biggest hotels in Barbados, and he would go and he would hang out with folks who didn't have anything at the end of the day, because it just wasn't how we were taught to behave. A job is that, but a community is your becoming, right? And and never that there's any disattachment from your community was frowned upon in my country, and that's what I learned, and that's what I remember. Other than the beaches,
yeah,
right?
beautiful, yeah.
Other than the
I was waiting for you to.
Oh my God!
That.
And obviously our carnival, which is called Crop Over,
yeah.
which I we haven't had it in a couple of years because of COVID.
Okay.
But I went 24 straight years, so just celebrating that. But the most important thing about Barbados, I'll tell you about right now, is that we have the second largest archive for historical archive for slavery in the world.
Really?
So we have a library that all the talk around critical race theory and all of the the lies about slavery and how you could find the truth in the library in Barbados, right? You could go and find out. How resilient these people were when they were brought here, or why they didn't make it, why they chose. And I keep saying, anybody who knows me say that I'm the kind of guy that that will choose the ocean. And what does that mean when I say I choose the ocean? You're not bringing me over here in this ship. I'd rather jump off. And I'd rather swim with the sharks. I'd rather learn how to swim in the ocean than you bringing me over here in chains.
Wow.
And that's just my whole mindset, choosing the ocean on a daily basis. And when I wake up, I choose the ocean. When I make decisions, I choose the ocean, because you're never going to handcuff me in any situation that's going to adversely affect me or any of my marginalized or disenfranchised students.
Wow. Well said. Well said. So let's talk about your education. So let's go with high school to college. What was the journey for you?
Man, I went to East Boston High School. I went to UMass Amherst and part of the reason I stayed in education and I work with students is because I want them to experience the same life I had in college. College, although I learned all these things in Barbados that I spoke about. College really made me feel, was the first time I realized that I was a black man. I knew about blackness, and I had some historical context. But when I got to college, sometimes the way you were treated, sometimes the way that policies were implemented, sometimes the systems that were created, you really felt them hands-on in college, and they were in your face. So my experience in college was phenomenal. It taught me how to become a man, but on top of that, it made me more versatile, right? And it increased my capacity as a thinker, because I met people from all over the world. I met people who were racist, who were battling the demons that their parents and the lack of truth that their parents told them. So by doing that, I was able to get a sense of what I need to do in the world myself. So college was great. I loved UMass Amherst. I loved it so long. I stayed for 5 years. I went on and got a master's. I just finished another one in student success at Regis College after doing one at educational leadership at Endicott College. So my education is important, but the thing is that the school itself and education is within the system that is very separate than the constant education that I fight for every day for myself. And we are all lifelong students, and I crave that on a daily basis. I crave knowledge on a daily basis, and if I could use my college experience. And I tell so many college stories to my students. Love my college stories, but I've told them so much that I'm not even telling the truth anymore. They just love it, right? So for me, if my desire to go to college was so contagious that other kids that younger students want to go to college, why can't my thirst and my craving for education? So that's my educational experience. I did a lot of protesting. I did a lot of fighting. I was in a lot of leadership roles. Man, I was just telling somebody the other day, 1997, we took over the payroll building at UMass Amherst. We were on CNN fighting for every single
Wow.
For everything, every single thing we could. We slept in the payroll building for a week. So hey, if you're not gonna give us what we want, we're gonna make sure no one gets paid. And that's what you have to do now. Like, we're not, all the protesting is cool, but are you gonna hit people's pockets?
Yeah.
I'm here. I'm gonna get your. If I'm a protest, I'm gonna get your pockets.
Okay. And so, what was the motivation for your career? So, why did you choose that career?
Because honestly, I want to be a lawyer at first, but then I know that if there wasn't somebody like me in my life, I would have been dead. And I just want to keep kids alive. It sounds very superficial. It sounds very like macroscopic, but it's the truth, right? This is all life or death right here. The students in my demographic, whether they're even the white students, right? If we don't get, my students don't get one bad decision. I mean, they only get one bad decision.
Wow.
They only get to make, students and kids these days in urban districts only get one bad decision.
Can you expand on that? So one poor behavioral decision could get a young black boy into the school to prison pipeline. One and where that student can end up jailed for life or dead, right? And Pedro Degara, the great dean out of UCLA, his quote, we jail who we failed to educate. And if we are not providing kids the opportunity or the ability or the chance to own their own learning and discover the truth for themselves, they are going to make a mistake where it will either land them in jail, land them on drugs, or leave them uneducated at the service of somebody else for the rest of their lives. And they don't get to make that mistake because mom don't have the money to bail them out. Mom don't have the money to get them a tutor. Mom and dad can't get them the nicest things. Wow.
And they can't advocate for them because in public education, the intricacies of that of public education is very much a secret. So the parents are shut out and they're only being told things by either unions or school districts. So what is a student to do when that particular student fails a class freshman year because they have someone who's insensitive to their needs? They can't get into Harvard. This kid's brain is Harvard worthy. So what could they do when they feel like they can't get into Harvard and their lives are destroyed? They're not gonna have any motivation. Okay. So when I say life or death, it's a student who doesn't have a path. Wow. And in my job and in my situation, I'm gonna always help a student create a path, because if they don't have a path, they're not gonna come. They're not gonna show up. They don't even wanna listen, because their default is try to make money or try to put themselves in a situation that's gonna adversely affect them. And you can't make those sort of mistakes as a young black man. You can't make those sort of mistakes as a young black woman. Black and brown kids are where there's a war on those kids, and we have to intervene.
Yes, that's accurate, because what you said, and you can follow the news, and it's everywhere. But a follow-up question would be, how important, and I know it's a common question, but how important is education for us, black people?
I mean, there's a reason why, if you go back 400 years, right? Maybe through 250, 200, because 200 people make believe that 200 years is a long time, right? That's like 4 grandparents ago, right?
Yeah.
No matter what they did, no matter what, the common theme has always been preventing people of color from being educated, right? When they killed us when we learned how to read, right? When we built schools, they were burnt. When we tried to unite in the Fusion Party in North Carolina a long time ago, those same people who came and killed black and white folks ended up being the governors, right? They refused to give us fair and equitable funding for education. So no matter what, the consistent theme has always been, we can't allow these kids of color to be literate and enjoy it, right? And to apply their unique experience to their lives, right? There's just this movement of having of preventing us from having to become global learners. So my whole thing is like, what is the reason? We know what the reason is, because we get a piece of the pie when we do, right? And what I tell people all the time, that you can't name historically one situation where people of color who has been successful has ever heard capitalism or the white agenda or the white supremacist agenda. If we do well, they're going to do well, and that's what they're fighting against. So how important is education? Education is that justice, because without that particular education, we're never going to get an opportunity to create to create any sort of identity for ourselves, right? We're going to always follow the rules, and we're going to always be told what to do, and that's where the justice comes in, because we are on trial constantly, and if we cannot beat the case unless we pick up a book and unless we educate ourselves and create identity spaces for us to cultivate our own identities.
Wow. Cory, I think you teaching me now. You're teaching me now, and I like it. At the end of the day, this is what we want to hear and what we need to hear, because that's what's gonna help us get to the next level. So let's switch to your professional career. So now you're the Chief Equity Officer at Everett Public School.
Yes, sir.
Take us to the journey.
Well, I was at New Mission High School, and New Mission High School, like I said, in 2007 was ranked 326 in the entire state of Massachusetts.
Okay.
The great Naya Wilson, who was a principal at the time, believed in me. Kelly Jones, who's who's a guidance counselor. The three of us really looked at things different for kids and said, the city wanted to close us down, and Thomas Payson, who just rest in peace, who just died, the former superintendent, he's like, hey, you guys got one more shot. And and we brought another lady, came on, Beth Kenny, and the four of us really buckled down and really created spaces for students to be successful. We addressed our AP scores. We added AP for all policy. We created a credit recovery. We had a robust post-secondary plans for each and every kid. We created a Saturday school model, so kids will have something to do on Saturdays that's just not related to work. So by doing that, by the time 2019 came, we were ranked 43 in the state.
Wow.
Like, I don't know. Like, we jumped over. You can't name another school that has jumped over 200 spots. On top of that, if you ever heard of language turnaround school, you can't name a school that's turned around that didn't. We're the only school that's turned around and increased our enrollment. We doubled our enrollment. What we were able to do in that school was, it is a movie. But it is a movie and there's blood on the floor everywhere, because there's no nails left on my hand. The people who work with us, everything is scuffed, and we got it from the mud, and we got it because we refuse to let kids fail.
What was the driving force?
So the driving force was keeping kids alive. We lost a couple of kids to crime. A couple of kids got killed. A couple of kids lost their parents. You're in it differently when you're the first person they call when somebody dies, right? When somebody dies, you're getting the phone call. Secondly, right? When you created a space where when somebody loses a parent and that kid comes to school the next day. And the reason they come to school the next day, take a guess, because it's the safest place they could be. They know we'll accept their tears, we'll accept their vulnerabilities, the whole nine. So by doing that, we refuse to put kids in situations where they cannot be successful. We fought that. So if you wanna give a kid a piece of the cake, we're fighting for the whole cake. And so that driving sports is really to look at our achievement, look at our numbers, look at our data, and then help kids to buy in. But by buying in, they bought into us. We was doing all the relationship work and social emotional learning a long time ago, but people criticized us for it. So how did that land me in this position now? Because in 2019, 2020, I was ready. I was ready to lead my own school. I was ready to become a vice principal. What really helped us before is that our basketball team was really, really successful as well. When we started winning state championships, more kids wanted to be a part of the program. So I applied to become a vice principal in Everett during COVID, and they accepted me. Our superintendent is amazing, Priya Tahiliani. I worked as a vice principal under Eric Nauman. Really good guy, really good leader. And what we did this year was constantly apply pressure to the student, staff, and the community to want more for our kids, to provide more for our kids, to give them more. And that landed me a spot. That I actually was going to leave, to be honest with you. I took a job for 2 weeks. I ended up staying there for 2 weeks in New Bedford as a principal.
Okay.
And my superintendent fought very hard for me. She fought very hard for me, offered me the chief equity officer job, and I came back after 2 weeks, man. Shout out to New Bedford. I love y'all. Sorry.
No worries, man. You were five-time state champion, right? So can you tell us, can you share the light of why education and sports go hand to hand? Important?
Oh, 100%. 100%. That was where I was before I got into this job, right? That world, the thing is with sports, it's just not about, in our community, our teams, everybody wants to be around a winner, right?
Yeah.
And if you look at the story, my first state championship, I had 6 girls. Right? If you look at it, you'll see the story. 6 girls, no uniforms, traveling on the MBTA, But it wasn't so much that winning helped those 6 girls, it helped the community come together. We had a school of 190 kids, and we're in the Boston Garden in our state championship with 500, 600 people. And we bought all the tickets, right? And so by doing that, it gave the kids who are part of this sort of move. It became a movement. You come to New Mission, you're going to be a part of a community. You come here, you're going to excel because the kids are good. The kids excel. They're winners. And I don't think people understand what winning does to the community, a marginalized community. It makes them feel accepted. It gives kids something to believe in. And for us, we ended up really we were rejuvenating a community that was struggling at the time, and they came with us, and we brought them along, and more kids started coming. It became so crazy that I saw a kid in one of our shirts, a little kid, and he said, "Hey, coach, I'm gonna come win you a state championship one year." And 5 years later, the kid came and helped me win the state championship. So you kids want to win, and they want to be a part of a winner, but we have to redefine what winning looks like for our kids. Winning in the classroom, winning character, winning random acts of kindness is what winners do. Surviving is what winners do. Beating adversity is what winners do. And as sports is greater than a roster, is in this community, it is influential because you never forget who made you feel like a winner.
Yeah, we'll help you there. Yeah, collaboration. Yeah, definitely. So
and then collegiate opportunities, right? All my kids went on to go to college.
Wow, that's great. And I saw your article on the Boston Globe talking about this 5-state championship, and you as a coach for girl in basketball. That's very great story, and they can find it. We're gonna put a link so they can get to that article. So let's switch to hot topic. So hot topic for you, Cory McCarthy. So this is gonna be a loaded question at the end of the day, but what is it like to be a black man in America?
Being a black man in America. All right, let me speak metaphorically, right?
Go ahead, man. You have the platform. Go ahead.
Imagine that you go outside in minus 20 degrees temperature outside, and you have a wet jacket on. Right? You have a wet jacket on, and you no matter what, you can't take it off. Right? You're just freezing in a wet jacket. Yourself up. Your hands are still, it goes from being cold to burning. No matter where you go or how successful you are, you constantly feel you're constantly under fire, or somebody's freezing you out. Just what it is, right? Being a black man in America right now, for me, is that level of burden, because I got so much built up energy and anger, because I can't really be myself all the time, right? And the reason I can't be myself, because I have to be mindful of the perception that people has of me. Because if I can't, I have to use that so I could get on this journey. I had to, because I'm myself now. I use that to get into the journey. We have to go on a journey to be ourselves.
Yeah. We
have to get enough and build enough and get cemented in our careers so we can be ourselves. A black man has to deal with so much of a burden, and then deal with his own identity, and then what people don't really talk about is the way we empathize with our peers and with our community, because we don't like seeing little kids not having. I don't like seeing a little kid, a child not have an opportunity. I don't like when people are able to use the things that we lack to really to feed us the nonsense so that we could remain poor, uneducated, and marginalized. So we carry that burden every day, and especially someone like me who has taken my mask off, know, and for me, it's like, and I speak to that burden, I talk about that chain, like we may have been freed, but the chain is still there. And until until we're able to comfortably not feel the weight of those chains, the world is going to continue to see us as a very chained and captive individual.
So would it be fair to say there's hope or not?
Oh, there's a ton of hope. There's a ton of hope. People don't like social media, but social media, oh my God. I mean, Black Twitter is out here canceling people, and
yeah,
I mean, it is. And like, now we have to be careful, because yes, I'm a chief equity officer, but we also have to be careful. We have diversity, equity, and inclusion positions that are created all over the place.
Okay.
But I warn people about those positions, even though I'm in a similar role. I warn people because many a times we get put in these positions to help rationalize to racists that they're not racist, or they are racist, which is really not our job, because we're the victims. Right? Okay. So wow. Like, I can't, it's like trying to tell a murderer that you murdered my sister, and I'm trying to help you figure out if you could get off, or convince you that you killed somebody and you didn't.
Wow.
So, I want folks, I think as long as these positions are great, but I think we have to do a better job of really making sure that we are not the teachers in this situation. We are strictly the people who are pointing out the deficiencies that districts have, that corporations have, that churches have, that the government has. That's what we do with these positions. So I think that's where the hope is, and the hope is in our kids who are seeing and building up who have low tolerance for nonsense. Like, I love seeing young people advocate, pick up books and say, hey, this is what I'm coming after everything you told me I couldn't have in 1967, right? And there's so many young people, and especially these young women, they're fighting harder than we could ever believe. And these young men got to get behind this power that these young women have, and they're trying to use social justice to liberate us. And I think right now we are and obviously George Floyd had a lot to do with that, but traditionally the what makes George Floyd unique is that it stayed relevant. And you bring up the name George Floyd, people are ready to check themselves around. Black people are ready to check themselves around their awareness, and white folks are trying to check themselves around their own biases and coverted racism.
Nah, good job, man. I think you nailed it. You nailed it. So there is a second hot topic, and you probably know it. There is there are multiple articles about the racism in Boston. Like one article talking about all racism in Massachusetts compared to the rest of America. Did you experience any of that, or did you know about the article I'm talking about from Charlotte Wilder, Boston.com?
Oh, you mean? I mean racism in Massachusetts. I mean, come on. I mean, are there? Are we expecting leaves in March? Are we expecting 85-degree days in the summer? It's Massachusetts. Massachusetts, to the credit, is progressive, right? But the problem we have is that we have all these people of color. We have all these educated white folks who are conscious of the struggle and conscious of their privilege, and there's no space to talk about it other than schools. Yeah. There's no place for them to gather. I can't find as a black man, I can't find a spot for me to be me with some people who look like me. I can't find that spot anywhere that fits more than 25 people.
Yeah.
I can't. So the fact that there's so many black people in Boston, and nowhere for them to hang out, nowhere for them to vibe, no bookstores for them to go to, that itself is racist.
I know. Wow.
Like, that's part of it right there, right? If you have all these black people who are contributed to the economy, what does that one say about us? And number two, what does it say about the commitment that the city has made to us feeling like we are a part of the infrastructure?
Wow.
It's very evident. Go find me a place not named Daryl's, which fits 30 people, or not named Slade's, which is owned by a white person. He cool as hell, right? But where else?
Great
where
place,
else Where are we going? Where are we going?
But I can tell you,
where are we going?
I can tell you, in my community, so I'm Haitian, so in the church, our church, but I understand what you're talking about. But there's also shout out to Boston While Black. It's in a network organization that kind of create that environment for black people, black professionals. So Boston While Black, you can check them out on LinkedIn. But yes, but definitely, and I think what you said,
100%. Black Boston as well. Black Boston as well. But if you sometimes go to these places, if you go to these, and I'm not knocking anywhere else who's trying. It's not from a lack of trying. What I am saying is that these places should be over. These places should be over flooded with people, with black folks and people of color. It should be. And these folks have to advertise their tails off. Shout out to Toyelle. Toyelle, she works at Black Boston. She had a basketball tournament to support Palestine, and nobody barely went.
Wow.
Yeah. Like, what are we doing, right? But part of it is that we are so accustomed to not advocating our kids deserve the finest things. Our old folks deserve the best. They paid their dues. That's why they're so disappointed in us, because we didn't pick up the ball before they dropped it, you know. And I think so. That's what if you're like, I talk about this with my friends all the time. That's why athletes don't want to come here. If you're an athlete, you come to Boston.
Yeah.
Where you going?
Yeah, I know.
Where you going?
And I think people. Let's talk about it quickly. So I know your background in basketball, so they kind of scrutinize Kyrie Irving, but you know what he did to the logo. He kind of stepped on it, and people were upset. But at the end of the day, and he had a bad experience in Boston, and the media kind of killed him for it.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. So yeah, I was talking about Kyrie Irving, who had a bad experience in his time in Boston, and last time he was playing with the Nets in the playoff, he stepped on the logo, and people reacted badly, and they were kind of mad about what he did. But at the end of the day, you're right that yes, Boston is racist, and there's a lot of change that needs to be done, especially in those higher roles, higher community. So let's talk about you being in your current role. So what's your objective? What's your goal?
Well, my overall objective as the chief equity officer is to make sure leaders have a supportive theoretical framework built with an equity lens. Teachers are teaching culturally relevant content to our students. Teachers improve or commit to being more culturally competent. We don't want, our community in Everett is so diverse. We don't want people to come from other countries and feel like they have to check their flag at the door and never revisit that again. America is a great country because it allows us to all come together, but it doesn't mean you should leave your flag at home. I think people, we have to make more of so it's my job to really make sure that everyone feels present, right? And I say this all the time. I want people, everything they do, they should be doing with our students in mind. Okay. With our marginalized students and disenfranchised students, underrepresented, underserved students in mind. Every single thing. If you're going to be late to work, you shouldn't be. You want to know why? Because these kids don't deserve for you to be tardy, right? If you want to take some time off, and the kids are looking forward to something, you're not going to you shouldn't have to disappoint them, because they along with your family obviously should be the focal point of all the things you do. We need to focus more on all the things that kids need, right? And once we continue to work together to do that, we will see greater outcomes, because no student should feel unnoticed in school. No student should feel unseen in school. No staff member should feel shut out when they're trying to deal with their own demons in a district. None of that at all. And my job is to also fight to make sure that there are people who work in our schools who look like our students, right? It's not to alienate other white staff. No, that's not the case at all. But the data says that people learn from people who look like them. And by doing that, we are able to create an environment that is conducive and non-judgmental to white folks who have flaws, to black folks who have flaws, and then we can come together, create some learning communities and task force, and really investigate why there's an equity problem in schools. Inherently, schools are not designed. Public schools, especially, are not designed to help students of color at all. It's just it's by default. The policies, the testing, the mandates do not help students of color because they're under-resourced, right? And their process is not the same. Like there's what is it? The survey that came out, 2 out of 10 students of color have been read to by their parents. because that's
Wow.
what poverty does.
Yeah.
Like, it's poverty, man. Yeah, my mom couldn't
Yeah.
stay home and be a stay-at-home mom, right?
Can't
And
do it.
she couldn't.
Can't do it.
You know, but who's gonna read to the kid? Who's gonna read to that kid, right?
Yeah, she's
And-
already
and I
tired.
think-
Two shift, right?
What they gonna do?
Wow.
And you got to worry about you got to worry about your documentation. You got to worry about your lack of being able to speak English. And you got to feel, and you know what kind of burden that is to carry around when you're walking around in a place unfamiliar and nobody understands you.
And you, yeah.
So what are we doing? We gotta, you know, and for me, my job is to go in and say, hey, this is the best way to make this family feel included, to make this student feel like he can learn, and to make you a better educator, because you now have some versatility across the beyond the typical Eurocentric practices in schools.
Wow. No, that's deep. That's deep. So do you have to deal with bullying in high school, in your school district?
Well, I don't have to deal with any of that because we've been remote and school's coming back. I haven't had to deal with any of that because we were remote most of the year. And honestly, there's a bully. When it comes to bullying, a bullying is a repeated offense. I've had to deal with poor decision makers, right? But you're not considered a bully until you repeat your offense. So yes, kids have done some things, but if I have a relationship with a kid, or I know someone who does, and they are able to leverage that relationship when that kid doesn't make the mistake, I'm fine with that. You wanna know why? Because that kid is now able to differentiate a good decision from a poor decision. Because this for our kids, before they can learn anything, they gotta understand what decision making is, right?
Yeah.
Right. And and I'll tell you this: the first job a kid should ever have in their life is as a thinker. That's all of our kids. Their first job in life should be of a thinker, as a thinker.
Why? Can you explain? Can you
That's your
explain
first
on
job.
that?
You're gonna be in good shape.
Why do you think is that?
Because thinking informs. It is fueled by curiosity. Curiosity helps rationalize why kids should want to learn, right?
Wow.
And if you're curious, if a educator provides enough content in an authentic way that sparks the curiosity of a student, they then become a thinker, because then they start to own the learning and say, hey, yes, that is green, but I don't want that to be green anymore, because I believe that if you put some yellow on it and in parts of it, and you add some blue, it could be a more improved product, right? Instead of someone standing in front of them and say, hey, this has to be green, it could only be green, right? And by approaching things, so that's what I mean with the thinking piece. And then you become critical thinkers. You want the curiosity, you want the questions, but public schools are not designed for kids to create their own questions. And so now, and that's not 21st century learning. Creativity, the ability and capacity to create, is 21st century learning. Memorization, I got Google. I don't need to memorize nothing.
Okay.
I don't need to memorize nothing. I may not even need to read because I got an audiobook. But what I need to do is to create. And I need to problem solve.
So, how did COVID affected your role and your school district?
How did COVID affect our school?
Yeah. Can you talk about that?
Wow, man, COVID. You know, at my district, man, we at one point we were in the red for a long time, and every other day there's a student with a loss, and you know, we just responded with the least we could do. That if you think about the least we could do, is bring you food. The least we could do is give you a gift card. The least we could do is have a conversation after hours. The least we could do is keep our Zooms open for kids to talk. The least we could do is to social distance and talk about something other than COVID. The least we could do is to provide social emotional learning. The least we could do is to provide programming for kids, talent shows, whether it's talent shows or we even went and got a art therapist for our kids. At least we bought books, and I was dropping books off at kids' houses on mental health. Shout out to the book Mind Platter. You should really pick that up. It's good for your kids to read as well. Mind Platter. So we just responded with the least we could do. We could never be in their shoes, but we made sure we checked all the boxes with all the least things we could do.
Wow, man.
That's how we responded.
So Cory, this was a great conversation. I learned a lot. And last word for you,
man. To all the people out there, honestly, if you wanna, I want us to just be truthful with kids, man, and it's okay. One thing that COVID has taught our students and our families is that the kids, number one, the kids understand what adult problems are like. So don't be afraid to have tough conversations with kids. Don't be afraid to constantly evaluate your morals, your ethics, and your values to see how they impact positively or negatively students or yourselves or your own children. They'll also pick up a book and share your knowledge with somebody. Create a ton of book clubs. Do a lot of book studies as well. And then if you're a parent, be very loud and be about what you want for your kid with schools. And if you're a community member, make sure that you know exactly what's happening in your community, and to constantly fight for all the things, because don't let somebody come in and tell you more about your community than you live in it. You live in your community, and you should know what's best for your community. And finally, for teachers out there, it is rocket science. Being an educator is rocket science, and you're gonna have to deal with folks who you disagree with. But your ability to sort of be in that room and be in that space and welcome that discussion and be open about it and non-judgmental about it and become a learner at that point, that's gonna get you through, and that's gonna eventually help your kids. So, as educators, that's what we want, that's what we need, and that's what our kids need the most. And if they're the center of that work, we're good.
Wow. Thank you, Cory, McCarthy. Really appreciate it. This is our 15th episode. We
appreciate you,
Cory,
man.
McCarthy. We had a great conversation, and this is Eddy Dacius with Divine Purpose Podcast. Every Wednesday we have a new episode. You can get us on YouTube. If you want to listen to a podcast, go on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, all the platforms you will find DP Podcast Live. Thank you and have a great day.
Hey, thank you for watching the Divine Purpose Podcast on YouTube. For more streaming with interesting guests and premium content, subscribe now on DP Podcast Live.